Welcome back to Inside the Philippines. I'm your host, and tonight we've got a story that's going to hit different than most of the ones we've covered on this channel. This isn't about a romance scam or a property deal gone sideways or some slick hustler playing games. This is about something bigger. Something thousands of Western expats are experiencing right now, but almost nobody is talking about publicly. Meet Henny. He's a 57-year-old electrician from Auckland, New Zealand, spent 34 years as a sparky working commercial buildings all over the city. Solid career, decent money, the kind of bloke who showed up, did the work, went home. When he sold his house and retired with what should have been enough savings to see him through, he thought he'd finally cracked it. Time to relax, right? But retirement hit him like a freight train. No identity outside his job, no hobbies, family scattered across the world, and an emptiness he couldn't wire his way out of. So like thousands of other Western men, Henny went looking for answers in the Philippines. Warm weather, low cost of living, English speakers, a fresh start. He arrived in Angeles City in January 2024 with hope in his chest and money in the bank, ready to reinvent himself. And for a while it seemed like it might actually work. He met someone, Maricel, a call center worker with a daughter, seemed genuine, seemed different. Not a bar girl, not asking for handouts, just a regular Filipina trying to make it work. But what happened next changed everything. Because Henny stumbled into something he never saw coming. Not a scam, not a con, but something far more systematic. He started noticing patterns, conversations in the expat bars getting tense, forum posts piling up about visa changes, cost increases, people quietly packing up and leaving, the entire landscape shifting under everyone's feet. And by the time Henny realized what was really happening, he was already in deep, financially, emotionally, legally. The math stopped adding up. The country he'd come to for affordable paradise was systematically pricing out the exact demographic it had courted for decades. This story isn't just about one man's mistakes. It's about policy changes and economic forces that are pushing thousands of Western retirees out of the Philippines right now, and almost nobody's connecting the dots. Henny learned an expensive lesson about what happens when macroeconomic shifts collide with personal dreams, and why geography can't fix what's broken inside you. Here's his story. In his own words. Right, so I suppose I should start at the beginning, yeah? Before the Philippines, before any of this, I was an electrician. Sparky, we call it back home. 34 years doing the same thing. Commercial buildings mostly, office complexes, warehouses, climbing around ceiling cavities, sorting out switchboards, running cables through conduits. Good, honest work. Kept me busy. Kept me from thinking too much about anything else, which I suppose was the problem all along, wasn't it? I started in the trade when I was 23, apprenticed under this old bastard named Jeff who'd scream at you if you stripped a wire wrong but bought you a beer after work every Friday. Worked my way up, got my certifications, ended up doing project management for the last 10 years, but still got my hands dirty when needed. Always liked that about the job. There was an answer to every problem. Breaker keeps tripping, test the circuits, find the short, fix it. Simple as. Bought a bungalow in Mount Eden back in 1995 when you could still afford Auckland on a tradie's wage. 3 bedrooms, weatherboard, bit of a garden out back. Married Janet in '97, had our daughter Emma in 2000. The marriage lasted 8 years. My fault mostly. I was always at work, always taking on extra jobs, always had some excuse why I couldn't be home for dinner or Emma's school thing or whatever Janet needed. When she left in 2008, I couldn't even argue with her. She'd tried. I just didn't know how to be anything except a bloke who fixed electrical problems. Emma's 34 now, lives in Melbourne with her husband and 2 kids. We're cordial, you know, Christmas cards, birthday phone calls, that sort of thing, but we're not close. That's on me too. After the divorce, I just buried myself deeper in work. Easier that way. So there I was, 57 years old, January 2023, sitting in the office of some young HR manager explaining that the company was downsizing and they were offering redundancy packages to senior staff. Voluntary, she said, all cheerful like she was doing me a favor. I looked at the numbers, decent payout, full pension kicking in. I'd already paid off the mortgage on the bungalow. Made sense to take it. Made sense to retire. Everyone kept saying how lucky I was, how I could finally enjoy life. I sold the house in September 2023. Market was still okay. Got $875,000 for it. After the mortgage and agent fees and all that, I walked away with $162,000 in savings, plus my pension of about $2,100 a month. Comfortable enough. Moved into a rental in Sandringham, one-bedroom flat, nothing fancy. Figured I'd take it easy, travel a bit, find some hobbies. Except I didn't have any hobbies. Never developed them. What was I supposed to do? Take up gardening? Join a bowling club? I'd scroll through my phone in the evenings and realize I had nobody to call. My mates were all still working. Janet had remarried some finance bloke and moved to Wellington. Emma was busy with her own life. The flat was quiet. Too quiet. I'd wake up at 6 out of habit and then remember I had nowhere to go, nothing to do, nobody expecting me anywhere. That's when I started spending time on the expat forums. Just browsing at first, late at night when the quiet got too heavy, blokes talking about retiring in Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, living on beaches for a few $100s a month, dating younger women who actually appreciated them. Fresh starts in warm places where your pension stretched 3 times as far. I'd see photos of sunsets and smiling faces and think, yeah, that looks all right. Better than sitting in this bloody flat watching the rain. The Philippines kept coming up. English speaking, they said. Catholic country, good values. Friendly people, no language barrier like Thailand or Vietnam. You could get by on $1,000 a month easy. Some blokes claimed less. There were YouTube channels dedicated to it. Western guys showing their condos, their Filipina girlfriends cooking breakfast, their cheat nights out drinking San Miguel at beach bars. It all looked so simple, so possible. I started researching properly. Visa requirements, 30 days free on arrival, extendable. Cost of living breakdowns, safety concerns, where other expats were settling. Angeles City kept coming up for blokes my age. Old U.S. Air Base area, established expat community, cheaper than Manila, less chaotic. I watched videos of Fields Avenue. The bars, the restaurants, the mall at S.M. Clark looked fine to me. Here's the thing nobody tells you about retirement. It's not the freedom you think it's going to be when you're working your arse off dreaming about it. It's a void. And I'd built my entire identity around being a Sparky for 34 years. Without that, I was nobody. Just some bloke alone in a flat with nobody to call and nothing to do. The Philippines seemed like the answer. Warm weather, cheap living, English speakers, a chance to figure out who retired Henny was supposed to be. So in December 2023, at 2 in the morning, sitting in that quiet flat with the rain hammering the windows, I booked a one-way flight to Manila for January 15th. Tourist visa. 3 months. See how it goes. Maybe this was how you reinvented yourself. Maybe all I needed was a change of scenery. I had no idea what was coming. No bloody idea at all. The flight landed at NAIA Terminal 3 around midnight, January 15, 2024. Stepped off the plane and hit the humidity like walking into a wet towel. Even at that hour, the air was thick and warm, nothing like Auckland's summer. Immigration took about 40 minutes queues of returning OFWs with massive Balik Bayan boxes, a few scattered tourists, Me with my rucksack and a suitcase trying to look like I knew what I was doing. The immigration officer, young bloke, barely glanced at me. Stamped my passport, 30 days. Welcome to the Philippines. Outside the terminal was chaos. Taxi touts everywhere, guys grabbing at my bag, offering rides for ridiculous prices. I'd done my homework on the forums, though found the airport shuttle bus to Dow Station in Angeles City for $3.50, about $10 NZD. 2.5 hours through the dark, past shanty towns and sleeping dogs on the roadside, billboards for Jollibee and SM malls lit up like Christmas. Arrived in Angeles around 2:30 in the morning. Got a tricycle to Nipo Quad, these little motorbike taxis with sidecars. Driver weaving through empty streets past closed sari-sari stores and sleeping security guards. Dropped me at the condo building for $50. The night guard let me in, handed me keys from the landlord I'd been messaging on Facebook. Studio apartment, 4th floor, no lift. Furnished, they'd said. And it was, technically, single bed, 1 table, 2 plastic chairs, a standing fan, tiny kitchenette with a hot plate, and a bar fridge. Bathroom had a squat toilet and a bucket shower setup. No hot water. Aircon unit on the wall that looked about 20 years old. All for $15,000 a month, $450 NZD. Seemed reasonable enough. I was knackered, so I just crashed on the bed and tried to sleep through the heat. First week was disorienting, yeah? Woke up every morning to roosters and jeepneys, blasting horns, karaoke bleeding through the walls from neighboring units. The heat was relentless. Even with the aircon running full tilt, the room never felt properly cool. Power would cut out randomly brownouts, they called them. Water pressure was rubbish. Half the time I was filling buckets and dumping them over my head just to get clean. But it was different. That's what I kept telling myself. Different was good. Different meant I wasn't sitting in that quiet flat in Auckland, staring at the walls. I started exploring. Fields Avenue and Walking Street were about a 15-minute walk from my condo. This is where the expat scene lived. Bars every 10 meters, music pumping, girls in short skirts calling out to passing foreigners, older Western blokes with Filipina girlfriends half their age. Kokomos. Why not high society Atlantis? All the same pattern. San Miguel Light for $60, girls who'd sit with you if you bought them a lady drink for $7.50. I'm not gonna lie and say I didn't go to these places. I did. Sat at the bar nursing a beer, watching, listening. You meet the other expats pretty quickly. They're all there, telling the same stories. Americans mostly, some Aussies, a few Europeans. Talking about their pensions stretching 3 times as far, their girlfriends who love them, the cheap cost of living. But there was something underneath it all. An edge. A tension. Met a bloke called Dave the second week I was there. Australian, 60s, from Brisbane originally. Been in Angeles 5 years. We were both at Kokomos watching the football on the telly. He bought me a beer, started chatting. Normal stuff at first, where you from, how long you here for, what brings you to the Philippines. Then he said something that stuck with me. This place isn't what it was 2 years ago, mate. Everything's changing. I asked him what he meant. Costs are creeping up, he said. Visa rules getting tighter. Immigration's been doing raids, deporting blokes who overstayed or worked without permits. The condo fees in my building doubled last year. Electric bills are insane now. And there's rumors about the SRRV visa. They're talking about raising the deposit requirements, big time. He took a long pull on his beer. I'm moving to Vietnam in March, Da Nang. Better value, less hassle. I didn't want to hear it, honestly. I just bloody got here. So I told myself Dave was just pessimistic, burned out, one of those expats who complains about everything. There's always blokes like that anywhere you go. But you start hearing the same things in different conversations. At Why Not? At the little cafes along MacArthur Highway, in the expat Facebook groups, rising costs, changing visa rules, people quietly packing up and leaving for Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Mexico even. I pushed it aside, told myself I was here to figure out who I was, not to get caught up in expat politics and grumbling. Then, in late February, I met Maricel. My neighbor Greg, Canadian bloke, early 60s, retired from construction, invited me to a birthday party in Mabalacat. His girlfriend Cherry was having a party for her cousin at their house in one of the subdivisions. Said I should come along, meet some locals, see how real Filipinos lived outside the bar scene. The subdivision was about 20 minutes away by tricycle. Gated community, sort of, with a security guard who waved us through. Rows of concrete houses, some painted bright colors, laundry hanging from windows, kids playing basketball in the street. Cherry's cousin's house was modest living room, barely big enough for the plastic chairs they'd set up. Table loaded with pancit, lumpia, lechon, rice. Music blasting from a speaker. Everyone speaking Tagalog and English mixed together. That's where I met her. Maricel, 38, worked admin at a call center in Clark. She was there with her daughter Maria, who was 10. Maricel spoke perfect English, none of that bar girl flirty energy, just normal conversation. She asked about New Zealand. I asked about her work. We talked about the traffic in Manila versus Auckland, the differences in food, the weather. She laughed when I said I was still getting used to bucket showers. She wasn't hanging off my arm, wasn't asking where I lived or how much my pension was, just friendly. Normal. We exchanged Facebook contacts before I left. She messaged me a few days later asking how I was settling in. If I'd tried the bulalo at the restaurant near SM Clark, no pressure, no agenda that I could see. And that felt different. That felt real. Looking back now, that was the moment, yeah? That was when I started thinking maybe this could work. Maybe she was different from the stories you hear. Maybe the pessimists were wrong. Maybe I'd lucked out. I extended my tourist visa at the Bureau of Immigration in Balibago a week later. Another 30 days, 3,030, about $90, NZD. Paperwork, photos, waiting in line with everyone else. The officer barely looked at me, stamped the extension. Easy as. I remember walking out of the BI office into the heat, tricycles honking past, street vendors selling mangoes and fish balls, the smell of diesel and fried food everywhere, and thinking, yeah, this is all right. This could work. I've got time. I've got money. I've got nothing waiting for me back home. Maybe this is exactly what I needed. She'll be right, I thought. Classic, bloody Kiwi optimism. She wasn't right. Not even close. Maricel and I started dating properly in April. And I mean properly, none of this bar scene rubbish, just normal stuff. Dinners at Jollibee where she'd get the chicken joy and extra gravy. Me trying to figure out why Filipinos loved this place so much when it was just fried chicken and spaghetti. Movies at SM Clark, sitting in the aircon watching some Marvel film I'd already seen, but didn't mind watching again. Day trips to Subic Bay on weekends. Riding the bus together, her pointing out landmarks and telling me stories about growing up in Pampanga. She introduced me to her daughter Maria in late April. 10 years old, polite as anything, called me Tito Henny. We met at a Jollibee in Dough Neutral ground, I suppose. Maria ordered a burger steak meal and barely looked at me at first, shy. But Maricel was good with her, drew her out, got her talking about school and her friends. By the end of lunch, Maria was showing me her drawings on her phone, some anime characters she'd sketched. Decent work, too. This all felt legitimate, you know? Normal, Maricel never asked for money. Sometimes she'd pay for her own meal, insist on it even when I said I'd get it. She kept working her call center job, graveyard shift, dealing with American customers about their phone bills or internet connections. We'd message during her breaks. She'd send me photos of the terrible instant noodles she'd eat at 3 in the morning. I extended my visa again in May. Another 59 days this time. Tester 410, about $130, NZD. The BI office was getting familiar, same grumpy officers, same long queues, same paperwork. But it was fine. I had a reason to stay now. Something that felt like purpose. Then, in early June, sitting at Max's restaurant after a movie, Maricel went quiet, picked at her carré, wouldn't look at me directly. I asked what was wrong. She took a breath, started talking about her situation. Her husband, ex-husband, really, though there's no such thing as ex-husband here legally, had left for Saudi Arabia 5 years ago as an OFW construction work, sent money for the first year, then nothing. Just disappeared into the Middle East somewhere. She was separated but not divorced, because you can't get divorced in the Philippines. Just stuck. She lived with her parents in a small house in Pampanga, about 30 minutes from Angeles. Supported Maria on $19,000 a month, about $540 NZD, which barely covered rent and food and school supplies. Her parents were getting older, her dad had diabetes, her mum's knees were shot, and the house roof was rotting. She showed me photos on her phone. You could see it sagging corrugated iron, rust holes, patches, where they'd tried to fix it with tarp and duct tape. Rainy season was coming. June to November, she said. The house would flood. The ceiling would leak. Everything would get ruined. She had contractor estimates $90,000 to fix it properly. About 5,400 NZD. She'd been trying to save, but there was never anything left at the end of the month. She was crying now, not loud, just tears running down her face while she scrolled through photos of her parents' house, the rotting roof, the quote from the contractor. "I'm so sorry to even tell you this," she said. "I don't want you to think I'm like the other girls. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to tell someone. It's so heavy carrying this alone." Here's what I thought in that moment. I thought about the forums, about the warnings, about utang na loob and debt of gratitude, and how once you start helping it never stops. I thought about all the blokes I'd met in the bars, talking about their girlfriends' endless family emergencies. But I also thought about how Maricel had never asked for anything in 3 months, how she paid for her own meals, how she worked a real job and had a kid to support, and was trying to do it all on 18,000 pesos a month while her deadbeat husband sent nothing from Saudi Arabia. And I thought about sitting in that flat in Auckland with nothing to do and nobody needing me for anything. I told her I'd help with the roof. It seemed reasonable, finite. A one-time thing. Not a handout, just a hand up. And she'd been nothing but independent until now. She cried harder. Said she'd pay me back. Said I was different from other foreigners, that I understood, that I had a good heart. I transferred 180,000 via Gcash the next day, watched my account balance drop. Still had plenty left, about 156,000 NZD in savings at that point, plus my pension coming in monthly. The roof money was just over 3% of my total. Barely a dent. The contractor started work the following week. Maricel sent me photos every day, guys on ladders stripping off the old corrugated iron, installing new sheets, sealing everything properly. Her dad in one photo giving a thumbs up, big smile. Maria helping carry tools. It was real work, real progress, not some scam. And it felt bloody good, honestly. Felt like I had a purpose again. Like I was fixing something that needed fixing, just with money instead of tools. She never mentioned paying me back again. I noticed that. But I didn't bring it up either. We went to Subic Bay the weekend after the roof was finished, spent the day at the beach. Maria came with us, played in the water, while Maricel and I sat under a palm tree drinking San Miguel. The heat was oppressive, but the beer was cold and the ocean was blue, and Maria was laughing as waves knocked her over. Maricel leaned against my shoulder. Said her parents wanted to meet me properly, have me over for dinner, said they were so grateful for what I'd done, that they'd never forget it, that I was a blessing. I said, yeah, of course. I'd love to meet them. Looking back now, that was the moment everything shifted. That was when I stopped being Henny the bloke Maricel was dating and became Henny the foreigner with money who helps Filipino families. I just didn't see it yet. I extended my visa again in early July. Another 59 days. The officer at the BI barely glanced at me anymore. I was becoming a regular. She'll be right, I kept thinking. Classic bloody Kiwi optimism. She was not right, not even close. The roof was just the beginning. The roof was just the beginning. I should have seen that. Looking back now, of course I should have seen that. But in July, sitting in my condo with the aircon rattling and the Gcash receipt showing 180,000 transferred, I felt good about myself, like I'd actually helped someone who needed it, like I had purpose again. 2 weeks later, Maricel messaged me. School enrollment for Maria. The upcoming school year started in August, and she needed to secure Maria's slot at a private Catholic school in Mabalacat. Better education, smaller class sizes, more opportunities. The government schools were overcrowded, she said. 40 kids to a classroom. Maria was smart, deserved better. The tuition was $45,000 for the year, about $1,350 NZD. She sent me the enrollment forms, the school's fee schedule, photos of the campus. It looked decent enough. Clean buildings, proper facilities, not flash, but proper. I transferred the money. What else was I going to do? Tell her to put the kid in an overcrowded government school to save a few $100s. I had the money. It was an investment in Maria's future. Made sense. Maricel cried again. Said I was changing their lives. Said Maria would pray for me every night. Said her parents couldn't believe how blessed they were to have me in their lives. Mid-August, her brother's jeepney broke down. These colorful passenger jeeps you see everywhere, holdovers from American military vehicles after World War II. Her brother Carlo drove one for a living, ferrying passengers along fixed routes in Pampanga. It was the family's main income aside from Maricel's call center wage and whatever odd jobs her dad could still manage with his diabetes. The engine was shot. Overheating, burning oil, probably hadn't been maintained properly in years. Carlo had gotten a quote from a mechanic, say $85,000 to rebuild the engine, about $2,500 NZD. Without the jeepney, he had no income. The family would be completely dependent on Maricel's 18,000 pesos a month. She showed me photos of the broken-down jeepney, Carlo looking gutted standing next to it. The mechanic's written estimate. Carlo's transport franchise paperwork showing it was legitimate. I transferred 85,000, told myself it was still reasonable. The family needed their income source. This was helping them stand on their own feet, not creating dependency, different from just handing out cash for nothing. The pattern was set now, yeah? Every few weeks, another emergency, another crisis. Always documented, always genuine seeming, always framed with apologies and shame. September brought her mother's cataract surgery. Her mum was 62, both eyes clouded over, could barely see anymore. The government hospital had a 6-month waiting list. Private clinic could do it next week for 60,000, about 1,800 NZD. Quality of life issue, Maricel said. Her mum couldn't cook anymore, couldn't help with Maria, just sat in the house all day, unable to see properly. I paid for the surgery. Maricel sent me photos from the clinic, her mum in a hospital gown, nurses prepping her, then after with bandages over her eyes. Then a week later, her mum smiling, bandages off, able to see again. Crying with gratitude. How do you say no to that? How do you tell someone their mum should stay blind for 6 months to save you $1,800? But here's what I was noticing, even then. Each request came with genuine crisis energy. Medical records, school letters, contractor estimates, photos. Maricel always apologized, always seemed ashamed to ask, always framed it as emergency rather than expectation. And the help was real. The roof got fixed, Maria got enrolled, the jeepney got repaired, her mum got her sight back. But I'd become the family ATM. That's what was happening. And I knew it. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I bloody well knew it. Meanwhile, the expat community was shifting. You could feel it in the bars, in the forums, in casual conversations at SM Clark Food Court. More and more talk about leaving. The SRRV visa rumors were getting louder deposit increases, from 10,000 to 75,000 US dollars, supposedly taking effect early 2025. Condo association fees were doubling across Angeles City. The forums were filling with posts about it. My own electric bill jumped from $3,500 in June to $8,900 in August, nearly triple. About $270 NZD for a single month in a studio condo. The rate increases were hitting everyone. Water bills going up. Internet costs climbing. The cheap cost of living everyone came here for was evaporating. I mentioned it to Maricel one evening, sitting at her parents' house after dinner. Said the costs were getting rough, electric bill tripling, everything getting more expensive. She squeezed my hand, said I should move in with them, save money on rent and utilities. Her parents had a spare room. It would be good for Maria to have a father figure around. Good for all of them. I said no. Needed my own space, I told her. But really, some part of me knew that moving in would be the point of no return. Once I was under their roof, eating their food, part of their household, the financial obligations would become total. Absolute. There'd be no separation between my money and the family's needs. I checked my bank account in late September, started doing the math properly for the first time since the roof. I'd spent $180,000 on the roof in June, $45,000 on school tuition in July, $25,000 on the jeepney in August, $60,000 on the cataract surgery in September. That was $370,000 in 4 months beyond normal dating expenses, about 11,100 NZD. Plus my monthly living costs, rent, food, visa extensions, utilities, going out another 35,000 a month, roughly 1,000 NZD. My savings were down to about 135,000 NZD. I'd burned through 27,000 in 8 months, and the burn rate was accelerating. I told myself it was still sustainable. The big stuff was done now. The roof was fixed. Maria was enrolled. The jeepney was running. Her mum could see. Things would level off. We'd go back to normal dating, normal life, just helping out with small stuff here and there. I extended my visa again at the BI. Another 59 days. The officers knew me by sight now. I was one of the regulars, the long-term stayers, the blokes who kept extending and extending, tourist visa turning into indefinite residence without actually committing to the SRRV. On the forums, Dave posted that he'd left for Da Nang. Just a simple post, made the move. Vietnam is what the Philippines was 5 years ago. Good luck to everyone staying. A bunch of blokes replied saying they were thinking about it too. Cambodia, Thailand. Even Mexico was coming up as an alternative. I dismissed it, told myself they were quitters, pessimists, blokes who couldn't hack it. I had Maricel. I had a relationship. I had purpose. This was different, she'll be right, I kept thinking. But the math didn't lie. The math never lies. And somewhere deep down, past all the rationalization and purpose and feeling needed, I knew the numbers didn't add up. I just wasn't ready to admit it yet. Not yet. October 2024 was when everything changed, not slowly, not subtly, all at once. The announcement came through the expat forums first, then the official channels. The Philippine Retirement Authority (PRA) was increasing SRRV visa deposit requirements. Effective February 2025, new applicants would need to deposit $75,000 minimum. Existing SRRV holders would be grandfathered in at the old rates, but anyone still on tourist visa extensions like me was stuffed. 75,000 USD. I did the conversion, 118,000 NZD. That was over 70% of my remaining savings just for the bloody visa deposit. Money I couldn't touch, couldn't use, just locked away with the government to prove I was financially stable enough to retire here. The forums exploded. Blokes who'd been planning to apply were rushing to beat the February deadline. Others were saying sod it, not worth it, and starting exit plans. The threads multiplied overnight. Is Vietnam better? Cambodia versus Philippines cost comparison. Mexico retirement guide for expats. The bars along Fields Avenue started feeling different. Emptier. My neighbor Greg came by one evening in mid-October, looked gutted, said he and Cherry were leaving for Da Nang in November. He'd already booked the flights. Can't justify the new SRRV deposit, he said. And even if I could, everything else is going up. The writing's on the wall, mate. This place isn't for us anymore. I wanted to argue with him, tell him he was giving up too easily, but I couldn't. Dave, the Australian I'd met my first week, posted in the forum that he'd moved to Siem Reap. Just 2 sentences. Made the jump. Should have done it 6 months ago. Then the other shoe dropped. Early October, Maricel messaged me. Her dad was in hospital, pneumonia. He'd been feeling rough for a week, tried to tough it out, but his diabetes complicated everything. They'd taken him to a private hospital in San Fernando. The government hospital was full, no beds available. She sent photos. Her dad in a hospital bed, oxygen mask, looking small and old. The hospital bill estimates $125,000 for a week's stay, about 3,750 NZD. Her mum crying. Maria scared. This was the biggest single request yet. Made the roof look small. But what was I supposed to say? Let him die to save a few $1,000s? Her dad had diabetes, pneumonia, needed treatment. This wasn't optional. I transferred $25,000 via Gcash. Watched another chunk of my savings disappear. Maricel called me crying, thanking me, saying I'd saved his life, that her family would never forget this, that I was a blessing from God. Her dad recovered. Came home after 9 days. I got photos of him sitting in his chair at home, looking weak but alive. Then, 2 weeks later, her cousin's wedding. Family obligation, she said. They had to contribute to the gift. It would cause shame if they didn't. Loss of face. The family would talk. 25,000, about 750 NZD. Small amount, really, after everything else. I sent it November. Maria needed a laptop for online classes. The school was implementing blended learning, half in classroom, half online. Maria couldn't do her homework without a proper computer. The cheapest decent one was a 35,000, about 1,050 NZD. I sent it. Then, in early November, the condo association notice came, slipped under my door while I was out. Special assessment for building repairs, waterproofing, electrical upgrades, structural maintenance, W120,000 per unit, about 3,600 NZD. Due by January 15, 2025. I sat on my bed in that hot little room, fan rattling overhead, staring at the notice. The math was getting real now, undeniable. I went through my bank statements properly. Every transaction since June. Made a proper accounting, the kind I should have done months ago. Roof, 180,000. School tuition, 25,000. Jeepney repair, 85,000. Cataract surgery, 60,000. Hospital bill, $25,000. Wedding contribution, $25,000. Laptop, $25,000. Laptop, $25,000. Total to Maricel's family, 50,650 NZD in 5 months. Add the original roof payment, 50,650 NZD in 5 months. Grand total, 735,000. 22,050 NZD. But that wasn't everything. My living expenses, rent, food, utilities, visa extensions going out were running about 35,000 a month. Another 1,000 NZD monthly. Total burned through since June, about 27,000 NZD. In 10 months, my savings were down to 108,000 NZD. I grabbed my notebook, did the projections. If Maricel's requests continued at roughly 75,000 to 100,000 per month, which seemed to be the pattern now, and my living costs stayed at 35,000 per month, I was burning through 110,000 to 135,000 monthly. Call it to 125,000 average. 3,750 NZD. 45,000 NZD per year. At that rate, my 108,000 would last exactly 2.4 years. Call it 2.5 years if I was lucky and the requests slowed down. Then what? I'd be 60 years old, broke, stuck in the Philippines on tourist visa extensions with no work rights, no property, no way to earn money legally, and no funds to get home. The condo special assessment was due January. The SRRV deposit deadline was February. My visa extension fees had doubled due to new processing requirements the BI wanted. 6,820 now instead of 4,410. About $200 NZD every 2 months. Everything was tightening. Everything was getting more expensive. And I was hemorrhaging money with no end in sight. I considered the SRRV anyway. Ran the numbers. 75,000 USD was 118,000 NZD. If I paid that, I'd have negative 10,000 in savings. Completely broke. Couldn't do it. Could I commit to Maricel's family long-term? Marry her? Get the 13A marriage visa? Accept that I was now the family's primary income source forever? The thought made my chest tight. It wasn't about Maricel being a bad person. She wasn't. Her family's needs were real, her dad's diabetes, her mum's age, Maria's education, the house that needed constant repairs, the jeepney that kept breaking down. These weren't scams. They were just poverty, grinding, relentless poverty that no amount of my help would actually fix because the problems were structural, generational, endless. I could give them everything I had, and it still wouldn't be enough. There would always be another emergency, another crisis, another obligation. And I'd be broke at 62 instead of 60, stranded in a country that was systematically pricing out blokes like me. I went to Why Not one evening in late November. The bar was half empty. Used to be packed every night. Now there were gaps, empty stools, fewer familiar faces. Met a bloke named Tom, American, early 60s. He was leaving for Chiang Mai in December. Said Thailand had its issues too, but at least the visa situation was clearer and the costs were stable. How many of us are left? I asked him. He looked around the bar. Half of what it was 2 years ago, he said, maybe less. The smart ones left already. We're the stragglers. I went home that night and opened the expat forums, scrolled through hundreds of posts. The same story everywhere. Americans fleeing the SRRV changes. Australians and Europeans moving to Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. Even Mexico was coming up as an option. Someone had made a spreadsheet comparing costs. Philippines versus Vietnam versus Cambodia versus Thailand versus Mexico. The Philippines had gone from cheapest to middle of pack in 2 years, and that was before the SRRV increase. The next day, I sat down with my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding. I Googled Vietnam retirement visa requirements, Cambodia cost of living, Chiang Mai expat life. The information was all there. Easier visas, lower costs, established expat communities, better healthcare in some cases. I was 58 years old with 108,000 NZD left and a girlfriend whose family needed more money every month than I could sustainably provide. The country I'd moved to for cheap retirement was systematically pricing me out through policy changes I couldn't control. I wasn't special. I wasn't the exception. I was part of a disposable demographic being quietly encouraged to leave. Looking back now, that November night was the real turning point. Not when I booked my flight home that came later, but the moment I understood that no amount of love for Maricel, no amount of generosity to her family, no amount of adaptation to Filipino culture would change the fundamental math. The numbers didn't lie. They never do. I just wasn't ready to face them yet. January 2025 was when it all fell apart. The condo special assessment came due on the 15th, 220,000, about 3,600 NZD. I transferred it, watched my savings drop to 104,000, 58 years old with 104,000 left, and no plan except hoping things would somehow level off. They didn't level off. Mid-January, Maricel messaged about her brother Carlo. He wanted to start a small business, a sari-sari store in their barangay. Needed mina 50,000 for inventory and fixtures, about 4,500 NZD. It would give the family steady income, she said. Less dependence on her call center wage. Less need to ask me for help. I stared at that message for a long time, sitting in my condo, aircon struggling against the heat, traffic noise from MacArthur Highway bleeding through the walls. This was it. The moment I'd been avoiding for months. I messaged back. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't keep doing this. The response took an hour. When it came, it was cold. Short. I understand. Thank you for everything you've done. That was it. No argument, no pleading. Just acknowledgement and distance. Over the next week, her messages got sparse. One-word replies. Seen but not answered. Then she stopped responding altogether. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I messaged asking if we could talk. Nothing. A week later, she finally replied. Said she needed space to think. Said she was hurt that I didn't understand Filipino family values, that family comes first, that a real partner supports everyone, not just their girlfriend. She said other foreigners really help their Filipino families, really commit, really understand what it means to be part of a Filipino household. I sat there reading that message, and something clicked. Not anger, just clarity. She genuinely believed this. She wasn't running a scam. She wasn't being malicious. She honestly thought that a wealthy foreigner should support his Filipino family completely and indefinitely. That was the cultural expectation. That's what OFWs do. Filipinos working abroad send money home every month, sometimes for decades. Why should I be different? And I couldn't explain to her that I wasn't wealthy. That 100,000 NZD wasn't rich by Western standards. That at my burn rate I'd be broke in 2 years. That the Philippines was pricing out the exact demographic I represented. Nobody was lying. We just had completely incompatible realities. The forums exploded that month. The SRRV deadline was approaching February 1st. Last chance to apply at the old rates. Blokes were making their choices. Some scrambled to find the 75,000 USD deposit. Most were planning exits. The posts were everywhere now. Not whispers anymore. Full-on exodus testimonials. Left for Da Nang last week. Should have done it 2 years ago. Moved to Siem Reap, cost of living half what Angeles became. Back in the States. Working part-time to rebuild savings I pissed away in Manila. Mexico beats the Philippines now. Better visa options, similar costs, closer to home. I started researching properly, not just browsing, actually planning. Vietnam retirement options. Cambodia visa runs. Thailand elite visa costs. Even Mexico's temporary residency requirements. And I realized something that made my chest tight. The mass exodus wasn't about romance scams or bad relationships. It was about systematic policy changes, pricing out an entire demographic. The Philippines' economy was growing, GDP up, wages rising, infrastructure improving. The country was developing, which was good for Filipinos. But foreign retirees scraping by on modest pensions, we weren't part of the economic vision anymore. The SRRV increase wasn't random. It was deliberate policy. Same with the utility cost increases, the stricter immigration enforcement, the new visa processing fees. The country was quietly encouraging low-income foreign retirees to leave, not through deportation, not through overt hostility, just through making it economically unsustainable. And I was part of that disposable demographic. Didn't matter that I'd helped Maricel's family. Didn't matter that I'd been respectful, tried to understand the culture, learned about utang na loob and pasalubong and all of it. Didn't matter that I thought I was different. The math didn't work. Simple as that. I could have been the nicest bloke, the most generous boyfriend, the most culturally sensitive foreigner. Wouldn't have changed anything. The macroeconomic forces were bigger than my individual situation. Early February, Maricel messaged one last time. Her family wanted to build that sari-sari store. They'd found a spot, gotten estimates, 200,000 total, about 6,000 NZD. They'd pay me back from the profits. It was an investment, not a handout. I read that message sitting on my bed at 3 in the morning, couldn't sleep. The heat oppressive even with the aircon rattling. I did the math one more time. If I gave them 200,000, I'd have about 98,000 NZD left. At my current burn rate, that was 2 years, maybe less. 2 years until I was broke at 60, stuck in the Philippines with no work rights, no visa options I could afford, and no money to get home. I typed out my response. I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. I have to look after my own future. I hit send. She didn't reply for 3 days. When she finally did, it was brief. I see who you really are now. Goodbye. That was it. 14 months together. Over? I should have felt worse than I did. But mostly I just felt tired. And clear. For the first time in months, actually clear. I wasn't special. The relationship was built on foundations that could never sustain the weight. Cultural expectation met financial desperation, met my desperate need to be needed. Nobody was lying. We just wanted incompatible things. She wanted a partner who would support her extended family indefinitely, like an OFW, like the wealthy foreigners she'd heard about. I wanted someone who saw me as more than a walking ATM, who understood that retired doesn't mean rich. Both were reasonable from our own perspectives. Both were impossible to reconcile. The forums were full of similar stories that month. Hundreds of them. Americans, Australians, Europeans, all realizing the same thing. This wasn't about individual failures. This was systematic. Policy-driven, economic forces that made our presence unsustainable regardless of how good our intentions were. I opened my laptop and Googled flights to Auckland. One-way tickets in March were running about 900 NZD. Affordable. I sat there staring at the booking page, cursor hovering over the date selection. This was admitting defeat. admitting that retired Henny couldn't figure out who he was by changing countries, admitting that geography doesn't fix what's broken inside you. But staying meant being broke at 60 in a country that didn't want me anymore. I clicked March 20th, booked the flight, paid with my debit card, got the confirmation email. I was going home. I didn't tell Maricel, didn't see the point. We'd already said our goodbyes. I posted my furniture on Facebook Marketplace, sold the fan for $800, the table and chairs for $1,700, the bed frame for $2,000. Everything went fast. Everyone in Angeles knew foreigners were leaving. The market was flooded with second-hand furniture. Gave my landlord notice. He barely shrugged. Said he already had someone lined up to take the unit. Another foreign retiree just arrived, full of hope. I wanted to warn him, wanted to sit him down and explain the math, explain what was coming, explain that the cheap paradise he'd been promised was already gone. But I didn't. He'd figure it out himself. Or he wouldn't. Either way, wasn't my problem anymore. I packed my rucksack, same one I'd arrived with. Amazing how little I'd accumulated in 14 months. Clothes, some books, a few photos on my phone of Maricel and Maria, and days at Subic Bay that felt like someone else's life now. March 20th came. I took a tricycle to the bus station before dawn. Same route I'd taken when I arrived, just reversed. The bus to NAIA left at 6. I watched Angeles City disappear in the rearview, the malls, the bars, the subdivisions, the life I'd tried to build here. Felt nothing, just tired. The flight boarded at noon. I sat in economy, window seat, watched the Philippines shrink below me as we climbed. Somewhere down there, Maricel was probably at work. Graveyard shift at the call center, helping Americans fix their internet problems, supporting Maria and her parents on -8,000 a month, waiting for the next foreign boyfriend to help carry the weight. I didn't blame her. I understood now. The poverty wasn't her fault. The cultural expectations weren't manipulation. She genuinely believed a wealthy foreigner should help. That's what you do. That's what family means. I just couldn't be that person. Not sustainably. Not without destroying my own future. The plane leveled off. 10 hours to Auckland. I was going home with 131,000 NZD. 31,000 spent. 2 years gone, nothing to show for it except expensive wisdom about the limits of geographical solutions to internal problems. But at least I wasn't broke. At least I had options. At least I was leaving before I became one of those blokes you hear about, 70 years old, penniless, sleeping in internet cafes, begging other expats for money to survive. I'd gotten out in time, barely. Landed in Auckland, late March 2025. 59 years old now. Same airport I'd left from 14 months earlier, but everything felt different. Colder, sharper, more real. Caught a taxi to Ohenhunga. Rented a flat on Hillsborough Road, 1 bedroom, $450 a week. Nothing special. But it had proper hot water, reliable electricity, no bucket showers. Felt like luxury after Angeles City. I had 131,000 NZD left. Did the math properly. At Auckland, rent and cost of living, that wasn't enough to retire on. Not even close. Not at 59. So I registered with an electrical contractor agency. Started taking jobs. Commercial buildings mostly, same as before. Up ladders, in ceiling cavities, troubleshooting panels. Back to being a Sparky. Except now I was doing it at 59 with a bad knee and $31,000 less than when I started. The first job was a warehouse in Penrose. New lighting installation. 3 days' work. The young bloke supervising me was maybe 30, called me sir. I wanted to laugh or cry, couldn't figure out which. I was back where I started. Except older, broker, and with 2 years of expensive education in why geography can't fix what's broken inside you. The wisdom came slowly, not all at once, just little realizations over weeks and months. I didn't fail because the Philippines is a scam. It's not. Most Filipinos are genuinely kind, genuinely hospitable, genuinely trying to survive in a country where poverty is grinding and relentless. I didn't fail because Maricel was evil. She wasn't. She loved her daughter, supported her parents, tried to hold her family together on 18,000 pesos a month while her husband sent nothing from Saudi Arabia. Everything she asked for was real. The needs were genuine. I failed because I tried to buy an identity instead of building one. I thought spending money on her family would make me needed, would give me purpose, would fill the void that retirement created. And it did for a while. But it was unsustainable. A house built on sand. I failed because I wanted geography to fix internal problems. Thought warm weather and cheap beer and a younger girlfriend would somehow make me into someone who knew who he was outside of work. It didn't. I was the same hollow bloke in Angeles City that I was in Auckland. Just broker. And I failed. Because I needed to be needed more than I needed to be financially responsible. That's the brutal truth of it. I knew the math didn't work by September. Knew it clearly by November. But I kept going because being the family savior felt better than being nobody. The mass exodus taught me something else, though. Something crucial. When an entire country's policy shifts against your demographic, your individual charm or generosity is irrelevant. The Philippines is changing, growing. The economy is developing, wages are rising, infrastructure is improving. That's good for Filipinos. But it means foreign retirees scraping by on modest pensions aren't part of the economic vision anymore. The SRRV increase wasn't random. The utility cost hikes weren't accidental. The stricter immigration enforcement wasn't coincidence. It was systematic policy designed to price out low-income foreign retirees, not through deportation, not through overt hostility, just through making it economically unsustainable. And I was part of that disposable demographic. Didn't matter that I helped Maricel's family. Didn't matter that I tried to be respectful, tried to understand the culture, tried to fit in. The macroeconomic forces were bigger than my individual situation. I could have been the nicest bloke, the most generous boyfriend, the most culturally sensitive foreigner. Wouldn't have mattered. The math didn't work, and it was never going to. That's the lesson. Not that the Philippines is bad. Not that Filipino women are scammers. Not that expat retirement is impossible. Just that no foreign country owes you cheap paradise. And you can't outrun yourself by changing continents. I'm working now. Rebuilding savings. At my current rate, working part-time at $60 an hour, I'll have my losses recovered in about 2 years. Then I can actually retire properly. Here, in Auckland, where I belong. Emma called last month. First time in years we'd really talked. She'd heard I was back. Asked if I was okay. I told her the truth. Yeah, I'm okay. Made some mistakes. Learned some things. Back on track now. We're having dinner next month when she visits from Melbourne. Going to meet her husband, my grandkids, properly this time. Build something real instead of chasing fantasies in tropical paradises. The flat in Ohanga is quiet, but it's a different kind of quiet now, not the crushing loneliness of retirement with no identity, just regular quiet. Peaceful even. I scroll through the forums sometimes. The exodus continues. Thousands of Western retirees leaving the Philippines for Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Mexico. All chasing the same dream I chased: cheap living, warm weather, purpose, meaning. Some of them will make it work. The ones with proper money, proper plans, realistic expectations. The ones who aren't trying to buy their way into a new identity. Most won't. They'll learn the same expensive lessons I did. That's why I'm telling you this. If you're thinking about retiring abroad, chasing the paradise you've seen on YouTube, running from the emptiness of post-work life, do the math. Be honest with yourself. Understand that poverty creates needs that are bottomless, that cultural expectations around family support are real and powerful, that policy can change under your feet, and, most importantly, understand that geography doesn't fix internal problems. Build an identity here first, then go, or don't go at all. I lost $31,000 and 2 years of my life learning that lesson. Hopefully you won't have to. She'll be right? Nah. It won't be right unless you do the work first. Learn from my expensive education. That's the story. That's the warning. Take it or leave it. So that's Henny's story. A cautionary tale about chasing paradise abroad when the real problem was internal, and about getting caught in a perfect storm of genuine cultural expectations meeting unsustainable economics. But Henny's experience is part of something much larger that's happening right now across the Philippines. What we're seeing isn't just individual stories of relationships gone wrong or retirement plans that failed. It's a systematic shift. Policy changes that are fundamentally altering who can afford to retire in the Philippines and under what conditions. The SRRV deposit increase from $10,000 to $75,000 US. Utility costs tripling in some areas. Immigration enforcement intensifying. Condo association fees doubling. Visa processing fees increasing. All happening simultaneously over a concentrated period. This isn't unique to the Philippines either. Thailand is implementing similar changes with their elite visa programs. Vietnam and Cambodia are tightening their visa requirements. Countries that built tourism and expat retirement industries are now developing economically and recalibrating who they want long-term. The cautionary tale here isn't avoid the Philippines. It's understand when macroeconomic forces make your individual situation unsustainable, regardless of how well you navigate the cultural complexities, or how generous you are, or how much you adapt. Henny could have been the perfect expat, culturally sensitive, financially generous, genuinely caring about Maricel and her family. Wouldn't have changed the fundamental math. The burn rate didn't work. The policy changes priced him out. His modest retirement savings weren't enough for the Philippines that exists now, let alone the Philippines that's coming. The wisdom is this: no foreign country owes you cheap paradise. Economic development is good for local populations, but often means the cheap retirement dream becomes unsustainable for foreign retirees with modest means. And, most critically, you cannot outrun internal problems by changing geography. Build your identity, find your purpose, understand who you are outside of work before you retire anywhere. Otherwise, you're just bringing the same emptiness to a different location with a higher price tag. Learn from Henny's expensive education. $31,000 in 2 years bought him clarity. Hopefully, you can get that clarity cheaper. Thanks for watching. Inside the Philippines. If this story resonated with you or you know someone considering the expat retirement dream, share this video. Help them avoid making the same mistakes. Subscribe for more real stories from expats navigating life in the Philippines, the good, the bad, and the expensive lessons in between. Until next time.